UFC Seattle has had 6 fights canceled or changed in the last 2 weeks, but the UFC still managed to put together a very good regional fight night. My name is Angelo. This is We Want Picks. I'm going to break down the entire UFC Seattle fight card, giving you my picks, predictions, and bets. But before we do that, let's take a look back at UFC Vegas 102. This event was last night. This event was a cash cow. We absolutely smoked UFC Vegas 102. And if this is the only video you watch, you would assume that it's just me. And We Want Picks is just hanging out on Angie Boy's shoulders. But it's not just me. We got Jacob. He's a small ginger gentleman. We got a couple of blokes from New Zealand. We have a robot, all of whom are giving you picks, predictions, and bets for every fight card every week. And all of whom did really well. I personally hit every single bet I put on the board. 2 of my bets were refunded. That's because they were no action bets, and that's fine. I'll take a refund over a loss any day of the week. So I effectively had 3 bets. All 3 of them hit, including the safety parlay. Bet Sam was on absolute fire last night, had a couple of wild props that took it home. Jakey Boy hit his underdog lock of the week, and we gave you a combined 55% ROI. It wasn't just the bets that absolutely dominated last night. The fantasy did as well. Obviously, we're breaking down fights. We're giving you picks and bets, and the website has a whole bunch of tools and other things that you can use heading into the weekend. Some of you watch for fun because I'm quite charming. Other of you watch just straight up, get to the point, I want the bets. Some of you do DraftKings Fantasy. Some of you do FanDuel, Prize Picks, Underdog. The website has all of that. And the website this week absolutely took it to the moon. Everything did well. Here's a win from Josh Shocks, DraftKings Fantasy. Josh Shocks, a little more than I would present to you. Josh Shocks is quite good at this. He provides us some insight, some information as well that all premium members use. And Josh Shocks put up a almost $15,000 DraftKings win last night using the information and the tools and the DraftKings ownership from the website. Josh Shocks spent $18 on one single entry, took down $15,000. Here's the best DraftKings ownership projection on the planet. This is what Josh used to build that winning lineup. All of these things, the picks, the bets, the tools, the fantasy, it's all included in a $10 a month membership. $10. That's $2.50 an event. Just go to WeWantPicks.com, click Become a Member, and join the legions of people that dominated last night and hopefully continue to dominate week in and week out. If you want my full recap from UFC Vegas 102, I sat in this chair immediately after the event was over and filmed a full recap talking about every single fight, what I thought, what should happen next, etc. Here is the thumbnail. I was shocked at that card. One of the things we released recently was the event simulator. So premium membership is not just some copy-paste bets. There are copy-paste bets, of course, but it's a full suite of tools and insight and information. We are quite literally have and continue to build the greatest offering in this space. There is nothing remotely close. Nothing remotely close. There's 7 or 8 different tools that you can use, all custom built from the ground up. There's copy-paste bets and picks. There's 4 human beings giving you their insight, and then a robot for a 5th with an artificial intelligence. One of the latest and greatest is the fight simulator. The fight simulator takes all the information and data for every single fight, and then it simulates it 100,000 times, and it takes those outcomes to build DraftKings fantasy lineups. You can use it for bets and what have you. And it's only existed for 3 weeks, and all 3 weeks, it's doing its thing. Week number 1, JLB reached out and made $500 off 50-cent DraftKings entries. Week number 2, King Poopy, which ridiculous name. King Poopy reached out, made $800 off a very small lineup as well. Week number 3, producer Nico said Event Simulator is very good. I won all my DraftKings fantasy stuff. Thanks, gang. Been a member for almost a year. I'm not going anywhere. The highlight of that is not how good the Event Simulator was. That's almost a given. The highlight there is that he's been a member for almost a year. So this gentleman signed up a year ago for $10 a month. And since he's been a member for $10 a month, all we have done is add more things and never touch that price. This was an unbelievable value a year ago when he signed up for $10. And now here he is with an Event Simulator, with an updated data analyzer, with more tools, more insight, more information, and more people like BetSlam And that price wasn't touched. It's the exact same price. It was a phenomenal deal a year ago. It's an unbelievable deal now. Data Analyzer is going to give you all the data, insight, information you could ever need heading into a fight week. You can even do a full tape study from the Data Analyzer. Click the button, bang, video pops up. You do the tape study yourself. Safety Parlay is one of many bets on the board. It's one of the most stable bets. Week in and week out, I give you a parlay. I call it safe. And historically speaking, it is the beacon of stability. I have hit 12 of the last 15 safety parlays. 12 of the last 15. Do you know how hard that is? Week in and week out to give you a parlay for UFC events where minus 700 favorites are constantly going down. 12 of the last 15, 7 units of net profit, 46% return on your investment from one single bet. And as I mentioned, a whole bunch of other stuff from a lot of other people. Every single thing that I mentioned, 15 other things I didn't mention. Right now, for $10 an entire month, WeWantPicks.com, click Become a Member. Here's the month. You sign up today, you're going to get UFC 313. You're going to get UFC Seattle. You're going to get 2 really good fight nights. WeWantPicks.com, click Become a Member. It's $10. If you decide you want to stay longer for a month, great. If you don't, cancel. If you want some value, we do a full year for $100. We do a lifetime for $300. WeWantPicks.com, click Become a Member at the top. UFC 313 is around the corner. It's going to be a great event. And I promise you, the closer we get to that event, the crazier and crazier the odds are going to be on that card. We saw that with UFC Vegas 102 last night. We saw people who, when I sat in this chair on Sunday morning and broke it down, were minus 250 favorites that closed at minus 6, minus 700 favorites. You're going to want to beat the line movement. This feels like the year of the casual line movement. When I say casual, it's the casual gamblers, the people who aren't doing this week in and week out, showing up, having some fun with the boys. And I love casual. I know people use casuals as an insult. To me, it's not an insult. Like, you have a life. You're hanging out. You casually watch a sport. Great. Like, that's awesome. Those people in the various states, various countries are starting to get into betting and sports betting. It's becoming more and more legal, more and more accepted everywhere. And they're moving lines like crazy. You are going to want to have our app downloaded, installed, with notifications turned on. Because, for example, last week when I gave you the safety parlay, I put a push notification to the people. Said safety parlay, minus 106. I think come Saturday, it was minus 150. We gave you another bet. Use of Zalal inside the distance, decision, no action. That ended up getting refunded because there was a decision, so no action. I got it at minus 115. By the time it hit the board on fight night, it was minus 350. So you're going to want to have the app with push notifications. Just search We Want Picks in the App Store. Download the app. And before you ask, right now it's iOS only. We had an Android version. The login was wonky, so we'll work on it. It'll get there. For now, Apple for the app. Website works on mobile, desktop, all the things. And of course, with UFC 313 around the corner, we're going to film a vlog. If you haven't checked out the vlogs, it's different content. Some of you care about my life. Some of you don't. Some of you want some behind-the-scenes stuff. Some of you don't. If you care about my life, you want to see some interesting stuff, learn more about me as a human being. I'm not just a male model sitting here on weekends for you. In that vlog, you would notice that there is a mail day. We get some mail. People send us letters. We read the letters. People send us products for their small businesses. We open them. We review them. All those things. You can send anything you want. We Want Picks, P.O. Box 406, Prosper, Texas, 75078. Let's go ahead and break down this card. What was that intro? Like 8 minutes? Can't wait to see that loser complain about it. Opening up the UFC Seattle fight card, we have Modestas Bukauskas taking on a Raffael Cerqueira. That's not how you say it, but there's a Q in there. Those aren't easy to pronounce. Modestas Bukauskas, giant favorite here. And we'll talk about whether I agree with that or not, but he is a versatile striker. He is dangerous on the feet. He can be a bit low volume, which is why his negative striking differential exists. He's hit with 4.11 strikes per minute, but he's only landing 3.21. But he does have all the tools to be successful at this level. He has a 71% takedown defense. He's typically a striker only, but he did get 2 offensive takedowns in that submission win over Marcin Prachniow in his last fight. He's taking on Raffael Cerqueira. Cerqueira. Is it Cerqueira? I do all the tape study. I have to, obviously. How else am I going to come up with these notes and learn about these people? And I hear their names get announced. And it's just like in one ear, out the other. And then my Western mouth just reads it for what it is and pronounces every single syllable. But Raffael's a patient guy. He fights very loose. He is very fluid. He's not in a hurry. He doesn't chase finishes. He doesn't even seem to throw with intent, but he is very dangerous. He's athletic enough to be creative on the feet. He's got good enough ground game to hang there as well. He's pretty big at 6'4", and he uses that size to move forward, get you on your back foot. If you watch some tape, you'd be surprised to see that he's got 10 stoppages. Because watching the tape, he's not exactly coming out like a ball of fire taking people's heads off. Then you look at the record, you finish the tape. You watch all the fights, and this guy is finishing almost everybody. 10 stoppages in 11 wins. He's not really aggressive, but he's somehow finding those finishes. He's coming off the 1-minute knockout loss to Ibo Aslan in his UFC debut. I have said this 100 times, and I'm going to repeat it again because we get new people every week. Welcome to the show. I do all of my research. I do all of the analysis, and then I look at the odds. So I have my pick. I'm ready to go. Then I go over and say, what are the odds here? Sometimes I'm shocked. By the time I get to the odds, I'm usually pretty dialed in on the fight and what's going on. Every now and then I'll see the odds and then just question my entire existence. This is one of those times. Why is Modestas Bukauskas almost a 4-1 favorite here? Like, what am I missing? Yes, he's a dangerous striker, but so is Raffael. Sure, Raffael was knocked out in his last fight, but Modestas has been knocked out 4 times. It's not like he's never been finished. He's been knocked out 4 times to Cerqueira's 1. It's definitely not Cerqueira. I'm going to pick Bukauskas here because Raffael's a bit unproven. We've only seen him in the octagon once, and it didn't go well. So I'm going to pick Bukauskas. But there's not a world. There's not a world where I'm betting on Bukauskas at minus 350. There's not a world where I probably bet on this fight at all. So we're going to leave this alone. I'm going to pick Bukauskas. He's obviously a good fighter. But I think Cerqueira is pretty good too. We've seen Modestas knocked out. We've seen him wobbled. He was even having some trouble with Marcin Prochnow in his last fight. I can't trust Raffael until we actually see him have success in the UFC. Can't fully trust Modestas yet. So we're just going to leave this fight on the table. Hey, you don't need to bet on every fight, guys. I'm telling you right now, you do not need to bet on every fight. It'll actually probably make your life a little easier if you didn't. You should bet on this one, though. We got Nick Klein taking on Mansur Abdul-Malik. Nick Klein. Quite the look. Quite the look. Nice feathered mullet. I think a dragon on his chest. What is that? Hey, give me a dragon. I want roses for hands. Yeah, right across my whole chest. Yes. I love it. That was him at the tattoo shop. We'll start with the Nicholas Klein side. He's a solid grappler. He can be a rangy striker as well. He's long. He's lean. When he's striking, he likes to stay on the outside. He'll pump a jab. He'll get some leg kicks going to keep you at distance. He eventually will take a shot. He does a good job lowering his level, shooting clean takedowns, and then transitioning into BJJ. On his feet, he can be soft. He looks a little bit uncomfortable, but on the ground, he's a grinder. He's definitely at home. He is making his UFC debut. He did have a nice Contender Series win to get here. He's taking on Mansur Abdul-Malik, a very good grappler. He's got college wrestling experience. He fights exactly as you would expect a D1 wrestler to fight. He comes from a D1 wrestler not named Dylan Dumbass Butka, by the way. He comes forward, throws bombs, and then he wrestles. His takedowns are big. They're clean. He does a nice job lifting when he needs to. So if you're sprawling or you got that whizzer in, he will throw his hips in, pick you up, and then take you down instead of working against the cage and making it more complicated than it needs to be. He's got great elbows from top if he gets to the ground, and he will absolutely work. He's coming off that knockout win over Dusko Todorovic in his UFC debut. At its core, this fight is wrestler versus wrestler/grappler. And you would normally just pick the better wrestler. In this case, the better wrestler also happens to be the better striker. I think Mansur is twice the athlete, 5 times the wrestler, 10 times more powerful, and I think he absolutely cleans up here. The one and only concern would potentially be a BJJ outing, where if Nick Klein could get mauled and then just pull something off a little late, but I don't think so. I don't think he's going to win a scramble. I think he's going to eat some big shots on the feet. If it even goes long enough to go on the ground, Mansur will be busy enough. Very confident. Probably my most confident pick on the entire card is Mansur Abdul-Malik. Abdul-Malik. Then we have Ricky Simone. I'm going to get this name right. It's not Simon. It looks like Simon. We don't have a tilde. There's no fancy Hispanic lettering. It's just Ricky Simon, but it's pronounced Simone. He's taking on Javid Basharat. I'll tell you right now, just because Ricky got smoked in his last fight doesn't mean he sucks. And you people, I'm talking you, sitting on the toilet right now watching this, you people are very much, what have you done for me lately? You forget somebody's entire body of work after one bad outing. And Ricky's had a couple bad outings in a row, 3-fight skid, but they're against good competition. So before I do the full breakdown here, just a reminder, Ricky Simone's couple of losses in a row are to very good people, including Vinicius Oliveira in his last loss, who just beat Said Nurmagomedov. That guy's an absolute dog. So I would not quickly just write off Ricky and go the Javid side here. We're going to break it down. But I just want to get ahead and give you a fair warning. Because I'm going to see a whole bunch. If Ricky pulls this off, Ricky blew my parlay. Easy, fellas. We'll talk about Ricky. He's a wrestling beast. Does he have the highest of the wrestling credentials? No. Does he have an incredibly high takedown accuracy? No. But what he does have is Marab-ish cardio and nonstop shots. The guy will dive on leg after leg after leg with 100% effort until he gets a takedown. If he doesn't get a takedown, there is no plan B, unfortunately for him. He just goes back to the takedowns. His biggest asset is his gas tank. It is his willingness to stick to a game plan. You're never going to watch a Ricky fight wanting him to wrestle and then wonder why his dumbass didn't wrestle. That will never happen with Ricky. He's not a technical striker. It's really just there to set up the takedowns. We've seen flashes of power. He's knocked down a few people with those big overhands that he's throwing to get the takedowns. But typically, he's not striking long enough for any of that to matter. He is coming off that decision loss to Vinicius Oliveira, where he was just outdogged. He went out there. He did everything he could to try to win that fight, but Vinicius, he's really putting together a nice body of work. He's taking on Javid Basharat, a grappler. He has incredible offensive and defensive wrestling. He absolutely has no problems with the kickboxing match either, and is landing almost 6 significant strikes per minute while only being hit with fewer than 3. We've seen him out-grapple some people. We've seen him out-strike some people, and he's had little resistance along the way. He's coming off that frustrating loss to Ayman Zahabi, where it was clear that Javid can be a technical striker, but he's also not dangerous at all and just literally didn't do enough. And as insanely frustrating as Javid's last fight was, even though I told myself to never pick them again, and even though I said every expletive imaginable while watching his last fight, time does heal all wounds, and I am back in the saddle on the Javid Basharat side. I do think Javid wins here. I have no doubt in my mind that Ricky's going to come forward. He's going to grind shot after shot after shot after shot. I am assuming and thinking that Javid's takedown defense should be good enough, and I know the striking is better. I know it is. So Javid is going to be the pick. What I would say is Ricky's nonstop pressure and pace might be enough to get the win here if Javid is just too patient and too hesitant like he was in his last fight. If Javid is just waiting, taking his time, and Ricky's the one, shot, pressure, shot. The judges might see that forward pressure and all those shots, even though they're not all going to be successful, as octagon control. So Javid's going to be the pick. I likely am staying away from this. It's hard to trust, and Javid's a guy that's been in more than one safety parlay, but it's hard to really 10 tone down, standing on business. It's hard to 10 toes down. God, that would have been smooth too. It's hard to 10 toes down on a guy that could end up in a staring contest and has done that in the past. So Javid's the pick. I'm going to chill though. Because if I had to trust one of these two to stick to something and do what they're supposed to do, it actually would be Ricky. I just don't think his wrestling's going to be good enough. Then we have Nursulton Ruziboev taking on Eric McConico. This fight was just slapped together. Neither one of these gentlemen were on this fight card. Neither one. And then just 4 days ago, they're both on this fight card. I have no idea what that means for their fight camp. I have no idea what that means for their preparation, what the weight cut's going to be like, who's in shape, who's not in shape. Like, these two were not supposed to fight anybody. And now they're on this card fighting each other. And there's a couple matchups like that on this card. This card is just, I mentioned, I opened the video with 6 changed or dropped fights on this card in the last 2 weeks. And this is one of the adjustments that the UFC had to make. I think Nursulton was here for the chaos that his brother was supposed to fight at UFC Vegas 102 last night. His brother looked like a sloppy weirdo. Ultimately didn't weigh in. That fight was canceled. I don't know. I'm going to break this down assuming they're both in shape and ready to go. I can't possibly know any outside factors. So that's what we're going to work with. And assuming they are in shape and ready to go, we've got Nursulton Ruziboev. He is a wrestler. He can be a grappling beast. He hasn't showcased that wrestling yet in the UFC. We've only seen his hands. But I promise you, there is wrestling in there. On the regional scene, when you break down the tape, he's a nonstop wrestler. He'll get you to the ground any way that he can. He'll shoot doubles. He'll catch kicks. Literally any opportunity he has to get you to the ground, he'll take it. On the ground, he's very aggressive, always transitioning while looking for a finish. He's got fantastic BJJ. Control is iffy. In the UFC, we've seen mostly striking out of him with a lot of power. He's a big dude at 6'5". He uses that reach well. He is coming off that loss to Joaquin Buckley, but that was at 170 pounds. And that's not his weight class. You could tell he just could not keep up with the speed and the movement of Buckley. He's taking on Eric McConico. Eric McConico is a solid grappler. He's comfortable striking, but ultimately he is looking to close the distance, grind fights to the ground. And even though he wants fights on the ground, he doesn't always force them there. Many times he'll wait. He'll catch a kick, maybe try to work in a trip without rushing or shooting. When fights do get to the ground, Eric does a nice job passing through positions and finding control before working to submissions. He's stepping up on short notice, as is Nursulton, and after a 5-fight win streak. I'm a big Nursulton guy. I've been picking him like crazy. That's not going to stop here. I'm glad to see this fight is at middleweight because that's where he belongs. He's way too big for 170. Up at middleweight, he can have the cardio to wrestle. He won't be worried about a giant speed differential. And he'll still be rangy. I think Nursulton has another showcase win here. McConico is not very dangerous. Certainly not dangerous enough on the feet to pose a real problem. And I do think, despite not seeing it yet in the UFC, Nursulton's wrestling can be a big advantage here. Nursulton's going to be the pick. I want to hope that all the excitement, the drama, the ridiculousness that was his brother last week, it doesn't matter. Out the window, who cares? Nursulton is here, focused on himself, and he goes out there and performs the way he's supposed to. These odds, minus 300, assuming everybody's in the shape they're supposed to be and ready to go, those odds make a ton of sense. That's what they should be. Nursulton is very good, and he's the pick. Then we have Adam Fugitt taking on Connecticut's own Billy Ray Goff. And everybody in Connecticut looks like this. Great hair, great jawline. I mean, Connecticut makes some of the best-looking people you'll ever see in your life. It's crazy. Like, people are like, oh, no, all the best people live in Hollywood. Yeah, they didn't grow up there. They weren't born there. They went there. They left the Connecticut's. So me, Billy, a bunch of other gorgeous people from Connecticut. And you could lump, let's say New England, because you could lump Massachusetts in there. Connecticut, Massachusetts, Rhode Island, Vermont, New Hampshire, Maine. It's all the same state. It's one big state. All of that combined is smaller than Texas. So me, Billy Ray, we got Ben Affleck, Matt Damon, all of us. Captain America. I mean, all of us just great-looking dudes from the Northeast. You can tell where this pick's going to go. We got Adam Fugitt. Not quite as good-looking as the rest of us. But he is a forward pressure wrestler. He's got a very loose boxing style. He bounces on his toes. He's got a high guard. He lunges in for takedowns. He's incredibly strong. And even when he doesn't have the best takedown entries, he can pick you up. He can slam you down. Even though he's got this high guard, it's not very tight. Straight punches get right through somewhat easily. He is very tough. He's hard to put away. He does get cracked. He does get dropped. He's coming off that close win over Josh Quinlan, where he had the striking volume, but not the takedowns. He's taking on Billy Goff. The Ray is new. He didn't have the Ray. He added the Ray. Trying to complicate things, be a little mysterious. Like a serial killer. They always have 3 names. Well-rounded guy, clean boxing, solid clinch. He also has very good wrestling, Connecticut, and grappling that he uses if he gets into trouble or catches a kick. When he does get a takedown, he's got incredible top control, good pressure, he's got solid cardio, he'll push a pace, and like everybody else from Connecticut, he's an absolute dog. He's coming off what felt like a bad decision, which was an absolute fight of the night war with Trey Waters. Billy and I, just a couple of great-looking guys from Connecticut, so this might be a biased pick. With that being said, Much like me, he's a dog. He's got good wrestling, like I do. Great cardio, like I do. Great pressure, like I do. No quitting them all, like I do. 2 peas in one pod. And even if Adam has some early success in the wrestling, I think Billy can grind through, can take over. Billy's the pick. I think a finish is certainly here possible. So we'll see if we get a 2.5 round line. We'll see what the odds are there. Billy's going to be the pick, and potentially we could find a stoppage in this fight. You got to stick with your boys. Then we have Jan Cutelaba taking on Ibo Aslan. This could be an absolute banger. Could be a ton of fun. Jan Cutelaba, historically, has been a wildly exciting guy in a ton of really fun fights. All of a sudden, he's going to decision. We've never seen that before. He's in a bunch of decisions all of a sudden. But historically speaking, Jan Cutelaba puts on a show. And that's because he's a grappler who happens to have power in his hands, and he's happy to fight in a phone booth, despite his questionable chin. He is a feast or famine guy, so he's going to be chasing a stoppage. He might get stopped while doing that. He is good on the ground. He does rack up tons of takedowns, but they're sloppy. They're body locks, more muscle than technique. He's coming off a decision win over Ibo Aslan, where he moved forward, bombed away, and then just accidentally stumbled himself into a few takedowns. He's taking on Ibo Aslan. Very heavy-handed striker. He can knock you out with half power and short hooks. He's a bit wide, bit sloppy, but it does not matter. He's all power. He's got plenty of it in both of his hands and his feet. He's not looking to wrestle, but he will sneak in an occasional body lock trip when he's just teeing off on top. He does have some cardio issues. Those were exposed in his only loss to Anton Turkalj. He's coming off that sub-1 minute knockout win over Raffael Cerqueira, who we broke down earlier. I'm going to go Aslan, only a slight favorite, and that makes sense because of how dangerous Jan can be. I know Jan, actually it's Iwan, which is, this is what I'm saying. Like, I know how it's pronounced. I hear it. I watch the fights. I do the tape study. Then I watch the fights. It's Iwan. But my brain, while sitting here right now, can't see I-O-N and just say Iwan. It can't. How could it? Spent 40 years on this planet pronouncing I-O-N, Ion. And then this dude shows up and I'm supposed to say Iwan? I can't do it. Iwan is the more durable as of late. All of a sudden, he's not getting chinned constantly, but he's still a sloppy brawler. And I think if he comes forward winging those sloppy punches against somebody who hits as hard as Ibo, then he's going to be in some trouble. I think Ibo wins. I think he can win by finish. Right now, he's just a slight favorite. I am curious to see what happens with this line because it feels like he should be a much larger favorite given Iwan's chinny past. We talked a little earlier about UFC Vegas 102 and what happened to those betting lines. This could be similar. You're watching this video right now. You see the odds on the screen right now. Come fight night. Let's see what the odds are on a lot of these fights. Because lately, the last couple of cards, the line movement has been wild. Absolutely wild. Lines are just taking off. And we have -6, -700 favorites all up and down the entire card. Then we have the featured prelim of the evening. Andre Fili taking on Costa. This could be an absolute banger. Both these guys can get after it. Neither one of them are soft. Both of them pretty aggressive. Andre Fili, a very well-rounded guy. He has plenty of hype behind him. He's unbelievably talented. His chin is not always going to be there, and neither will his decision-making. Style-wise, Andre's a very well-rounded, technical brawler. He does have wrestling as well. He gets hit often. You can see that with his negative striking differential, and he relies on his chin a little too much. He does have solid takedowns. He averages over 2 per fight. He's coming off that bounce-back win over Cub Swanson, where the takedowns are what sealed the deal. He's taking on Costa. Costa is a well-rounded guy with creative striking and solid grappling. His takedowns are a bit forced, but he is strong enough and persistent enough that if he gets you to the cage, he is going to work you to the ground. You'll see him work for takedowns pretty often, but he doesn't need them in a lot of fights. He's got powerful hands. He's got solid technique. He strings together combinations well. He'll even mix in some spinning attacks. He's also coming off that submission win over Shailan Nursulton, where he was completely out-wrestled, but he managed to take his back and submit him because Shailan was absolutely exhausted. And anytime I sit here and try to break down an Andre Fili fight, it's tricky. He's one of the biggest waste of talents we have seen. He's very good almost everywhere. He's at a great camp, but he never quite lived up to that hype. And because of that, I very cautiously have to pick him here. I'm picking him because he's the better fighter. I'm picking him because I think he's literally better everywhere. Now, he may just bite down on his mouthpiece and get after it and get himself into trouble. That'd be a problem. He may decide not to wrestle even though he has the abilities. That could be a problem. But Andre Fili is going to be the pick. His odds are dead even right now. I don't know if we'll have it emerge. This might be one of those fights where it's just like, constantly back and forth. Or Andre's going to run away with it and be the favorite. He should be the favorite. He should win this fight. Better literally everywhere. But the decision-making, the chin, his willingness to just brawl it out, have some fun, and smile makes it very tricky to spend your money on this guy. But Andre Fili is going to be the pick. And if you want $50, we'll send you $50. All you need to do is go to WeWantPicks.com/bets. Use the promo links to sign up with any one of the sportsbook partners. You make a deposit, and we'll send you $50. They're going to pay us, right? It's affiliate links. So you use the affiliate link. You do what you're supposed to do. Then they pay me. And then I slice off $50 and I give it to you. Michael Scott would say this is a win, win, win. WeWantPicks.com/bets. Before I do the full promo here, I do want to say thank you. I appreciate every single one. These videos are doing really well. And these are actually my favorite video to film. People always ask, Ange, do you even like doing the YouTube stuff? Like, what's that like? First of all, when I'm in real life and people say, what do you do for a living? I tell them my real job. I have a real job. This is not my only job. And I tell them, I do this. And sometimes, depending who's around me, they may say, he's got a YouTube channel. And it's so, I got to figure out a better way to describe it. Because saying he's got a YouTube, being an adult man with a YouTube channel just sounds weird. So I think I'm playing with runs a tout service. I have a small business with my buddy. But I do appreciate you guys being here, genuinely. And people always say, do you like doing that? And sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. My favorite video to film is this one because it's a Sunday morning. I'm usually excited, energized from the success the night before. And I get to sit here, hang out with you all for an hour or so, edit the video, upload it, and then I have the rest of Sunday to chill. My least favorite video to film are the recap videos. Because the recap videos are right after the event. And depending what time, sometimes it's 2 o'clock in the morning. Last night, I was at dinner. A bunch of us were at dinner, 4 families at dinner, hanging out. And as soon as that main event ended, I'm like, I got to go. I got up and left. I left the wife, the kids there, all the other families, my buddies. I left to come home and film. And then I filmed that video. That video by far gets the most amount of nonsense. This video has the most amount of positivity. Mostly like, thanks for being so early, appreciated. Usually a lot of like, thanks for last night. The recap video, it's inevitable. It's inevitable. You're wrong. So-and-so didn't win the fight. Thanks for this pick, idiot. And the theme for last night's recap video is Dylan Budka sucks. How could you pick him? But people were commenting that before they even heard the narrative. So yeah, I love doing this. I appreciate you guys being here. Genuinely. A lot of random content on YouTube. So you choosing to watch this content and listen to me, a little stuffy today, I genuinely appreciate it. It blows my mind. When I see the numbers, it blows my mind that many people are here hanging out for some fight talk. So thank you all genuinely very much. But my appreciation for you it's not gonna spare you from a promo pitch. It can't. This is what pays the bill. There's no money in YouTube, by the way. None. There is in premium for you because you have access to all the tools. One of the tools, the latest and greatest, is the fight simulator. It's going to take every single fight on the fight card. It is going to take data like historical striking and grappling statistics, implied probability, and it's going to simulate those fights 100,000 times. And it then takes those outputs from the 100,000 simulations, and it can build DraftKings fantasy lineups. You can use it for bets and picks. All of that happens instantly on the website. You also have access to the safety parlay. Safety parlay, point of pride for Big Ange. Safety parlay hit 12 of the last 15. Imagine sitting here telling tens of thousands of people every single week a single bet and then having to be accountable for that bet when dumbasses like Rinya Nakamura forget that they're world-level wrestlers. Now imagine that the Rinya Nakamuras of the world have only screwed you 3 times in the last 15 events. In the last 15 events, we hit 12 safety parlays. Those 12 wins equate to a 46% return on your investment. You can unlock the safety parlay. You can unlock the fight simulator. You can unlock every single tool, pick, and bet that we have, not only from me, but from Jacob, Artem, BetSam, the robot. Right now, it's $10. It's $10 for an entire month. WeWantPicks.com. Click Become a Member at the top. And if you do want to send something for the vlog, I'll be filming a vlog in 2 weeks here for UFC 313. The address to send something to is We Want Picks, P.O. Box 406, Prosper, Texas, 75078. Let's go ahead and break down this main card. This is another late addition. Alonzo Menifield was not on this card. Julius Walker was not on this card. This fight popped up out of thin air. Just boom. Here you go. So again, just like the Nursulton breakdown, I have to assume that these guys are ready to go. I have no idea what's going on. I have no idea if they were training, not training, what their weight is. I have no clue. Nobody does, because this was just slapped together. We got Alonzo Menifield, UFC veteran. This guy's got great power, typically really good takedown defense as well. He's always looking to take your head off with every single punch. His striking can be wild, at times a little bit sloppy, but the power, absolutely undeniable. When Alonzo is coming forward and being the aggressor, he's very dangerous. You can't always trust his decision-making or his oddly timed takedown attempts. He's coming off that knockout loss to Azamat Murzakanov, where he was marching forward. He was eating a bunch of shots until he couldn't anymore. He's taking on Julius Walker. Julius Walker is very early in his MMA career. You're going to see undefeated, 6-0. He has only been a professional fighter for 2 years. 2 years. 2 years ago, not a professional fighter. Now, a professional fighter in the UFC. So this guy is either BJ Penn or too much too soon. He can end up in some bad positions at times, and he is forced to rely on his athleticism to get through. He's definitely flashy. He's got some power. There are some holes in his takedown defense, but he is defensively sound enough to avoid getting submitted. He's got solid offensive BJJ, and he is very capable of finding something in a scramble. And listen, I get it. I can see the comments now. Same exact comments you guys left when I picked Andre Petroski last week. When I picked Andre Petroski, you left a whole bunch. He's washed. This guy sucks. Petroski sucks. Washed. Garbage. Blah, blah, blah. You're going to do the exact same thing when I pick Alonzo Menifield here. He's washed. Garbage. Blah, blah, blah. The difference is Alonzo's actually a favorite, and when I picked Andre Petroski, he was a pretty big underdog. But it's going to be the same narrative. You lose a couple fights in a row, and everybody thinks you suck forever. I disagree. Is Alonzo Menifield the same version of himself when he was on a 4-fight win streak? No. Is he better than a dude who just started this sport 2 years ago? 100% yes. His last 2 losses are to Carlos Ulberg, who potentially could be fighting for a title anytime now, and Azamat Murzakanov, who's also very good. Both of those people would steamroll newcomer Julius Walker. I think Alonzo Menifield has too much experience, too much power. Overall, just too good to lose to a flashy newcomer. Julius is young. He's athletic. He's busy. Experience matters in this game. Alonzo is the pick. I put a full unit on him at -140. We'll see if the general public agrees. We'll see what the odds happen in this fight. I have to imagine people look at this for what it actually is and don't just look at it for Alonzo's on a 2-fight losing streak and look at it for what it actually is and bet on him, and the line's going to take off. Because when I saw, that's Chael Sonnen, 2 years, just 2 years in this game, I was like, nah, can't be. Alonzo Menifield is still very, very good. Then we have Jean Silva taking on Melsik Baghdasaryan. Jean Silva, tons of hype. He's at Fighting Nerds, obviously, and the core 4 at Fighting Nerds are doing insanely well. And he's part of that core 4. Jean Silva's a powerful striker. He's loose. He's creative. The creativity is fun to watch. It does get him into some weird positions, though. He's interesting to watch because he'll go from like high, tight guard to just loose, hands down, bouncing around. And he alternates between the two often enough to get people like, what's going on here? I can't find a rhythm because he's not in a rhythm. He lowers his level. He lands body shots. He comes up to the head with big power. Takedown defense is solid. Striking is absolutely phenomenal. He's coming off his 3rd knockout win in a row, this time over short notice stoppage on Drew Dober. He dominated at UFC 303. Then quick-ass turnaround. Boom. Drew Dober ate a big one. He's taking on Melsik Baghdasaryan. Melsik Baghdasaryan is a very aggressive striker who is always moving forward. He's got diverse striking, does a great job mixing things up. He's got a very long professional kickboxing background. And then he transitioned to MMA. And you can see that technique in the octagon. He'll go to the body, he'll use kicks, he'll put it all together really, really well. He's got good forward pressure, good power, and diversity, and it's all very fun to watch. But he does have grappling holes. He's coming off that decision win to Tucker Lutz, where the striking looked good, and he was tough, but he reminded us he has zero takedown defense whatsoever. And I don't know if that's going to matter here because this should be a fun fight between two high-level strikers. And while the odds have all but counted Melsik out, he could have success here. Don't get me wrong. Jean Silva is going to be the pick, a pretty confident pick, but Melsik isn't just some random sloppy MMA striker. He's not Drew Dober that's just going to rely on his chin. He's a real striker with a long professional kickboxing background. And I think this line is somewhat inflated because of Jean's recent success and Melsik's layoff. But the reality is, this will be a fun fight. I actually think this probably goes to a decision. Two high-level strikers. I'm not sure I'm going to touch the Jean Silva money line here. Over 2.5 might be juice. We might get a 1.5 line. And that could be a really fun juiced over that we can hit. Melsik is a very good professional striker. Jean Silva should win this fight, but sometimes you got to look at these fights for what they are and not just look at the green dots on Tapology and draw your own conclusions. Then we got Rob Font taking on Jean Matsumoto. Couple of mix-ups here. This is also part of the 6 fights dropped and changed coming into this card. Rob Font was supposed to fight Dominic Cruz in Dominic Cruz's retirement fight. Notably, Dominic Cruz, I think, hurt his shoulder, needed surgery, and he's like, I'm done. He retired from the sport. Poor Dominic Cruz didn't get to go out with a win. He was going to smoke Rob Font. Wasn't even going to be close. It would have been amazing. But it is what it is. He's been injury-plagued. You could argue he's Hall of Fame level in his career. But Rob Font remains on the card. They gave him Jean Matsumoto. Jean Matsumoto was supposed to fight Chris Gutierrez at UFC 313. That's in a few weeks. But he's been moved off of that card onto this card, and let's just hope it's not going to mess with too much. The weight class is now 140. So 140-pound catch weight, so he got 5 pounds for the 2-week inconvenience, essentially. Rob Font, while elderly, is still gritty. He's still tough. He's a technical striker. He's got a solid chin, not a lot of power. He is primarily a boxer, so he's not really kicking or wrestling very often, but he doesn't need to because his hands are clean. They're fast. He works in and out of that pocket before most fighters even know what happened. He has fantastic volume at almost 6 significant strikes landed per minute. Decent defense, being hit with fewer than 4. He's coming off the win over Kyler Phillips, where the striking was good enough to make up for 4 takedowns. He's taking on Jean Matsumoto. This guy's really well-rounded. In fact, he's got black belts and accolades in multiple martial arts. He can initiate offensive takedowns as well with big power doubles. If he is taken down and if he ends up on bottom, he stays busy. He makes you work. He's a creative striker with a variety of kicks and counters. He does get hit, though, but he's plenty tough and has plenty of cardio to push through. He's coming off that decision win over Brad Katana, where he was taken down 3 times, but we saw the power, we saw the clean striking reads, and he was blasting Brad off of leg kicks. Because of the short notice, I mentioned this fight is 145-pound catch weight. 140-pound catch weight instead of 135 pounds. I don't think it's going to matter, but I did want to point that out. We're about to find out if Jean is the real deal or not. But before I pick Jean, which I'm about to do, and before I say he wins, I want to remind you that Font is actually pretty good. He can't defend takedowns for shit, but his boxing is clean. It is tight. If Jean keeps this a striking match, it could actually be a lot closer than people think. But if he mixes in wrestling and power, he should absolutely run away with this. Jean's going to be the pick. I'm going to assume he has the cardio needed to mix things up. And I'm surprised at the line movement already. You're looking at this graphic. Mine is 225 for Jean. He's actually minus 170 already. So in the 24 hours from when this was announced to where we are, people bet the shit out of Rob Font. But let's just go back to last night and look at Calvin Kattar. Calvin Kattar was supposed to be light years ahead of Youssef Zalal in the striking. The narrative was Youssef's going to take him down, and that's how Youssef's going to win, because Calvin's such a good, clean technical striker. And Youssef outstruck Calvin in rounds 1 and 2. Like, beat him to every punch. Was cleaner, faster. Wasn't even close in rounds 1 and 2. this could look exactly the same. These guys are aging. Rob Font's getting old, man. He's 37. And 37 at these little weight classes matters. So Rob Font's still good. And he's still going to be technical, can still have some success. But I do think it's a changing of the guard. I think Gene Matsumoto is going to be too much, too aggressive, had too good of a chin, too much power, too many ways to win. Gene Matsumoto is the pick. Then we have the co-main event of the evening. We have Brendan Allen taking on Anthony Hernandez in a very good middleweight matchup. This fight will absolutely decide the top 5 in the UFC middleweight division. Anthony Hernandez on a wild win streak. Brendan Allen was on a wild win streak and then just lost his last fight to break it. That karma could work its way over to Anthony Hernandez. But this is going to be a good matchup. We got Brendan Allen. Brendan Allen is a BJJ black belt. He's got solid low kicks, solid takedowns, solid striking. He's had a nice little evolution in the octagon where he went from primarily a grappler to a well-rounded MMA fighter. He seems to have more confidence than ever, and it has showed. He did just lose or snap a 6-fight win streak with a decision loss to Nasser Nimavov, where he had a great takedown early. That first round looked like, oh boy, Brendan Allen's the real deal. But the success pretty much stopped there. He's taking on Anthony Fluffy Hernandez. He's a very good grappler. He's averaging almost 7 takedowns per fight. He has solid wrestling with real entries. He's a BJJ black belt, and although he is willing to strike, it's not really his path to victory. He has put together a nice 6-fight win streak of his own. He's coming off that main event win over Michel Pereira, where he had 6 times the amount of strikes. 6 times the amount of strikes. And he got 10 takedowns. I am a notorious Fluffy hater. And actually, hater is probably not the right word. I'm more of a Fluffy underestimator. I never really give him full credit for his skills and what he can do. I usually chalk it up to like a mistake his opponent made or favorable matchmaking. But his win over Michel Pereira was wildly impressive. Both the skills were impressive and the gas tank. If he can push that exact same pace with that much wrestling against Michel Pereira, in this fight, I imagine he'll have some success. Brendan is definitely good, and his loss to Imavov looks better now than it did when it happened. But the Hernandez cardio is just different. I think the pace will matter, even though it's only 3 rounds. And I want to give Anthony Hernandez a lot of credit here because how many times have we railroaded fighters for having trash cardio? Look at what happened to RoboCop. RoboCop in the first round last night, in the main event, his first ever main event, in the first round, it looked like he was going to finish Jared Cannonier. Looked great. And then slowed, eventually just got broken because he didn't have the cardio to hang. Cardio is the one thing you can control. God decided if you had a chin or not. God decided if you were going to be fast or not. God decided how coordinated you would be, how easy things come to you. You decide how good your cardio is. And Anthony Hernandez is not the most athletic guy in the world. He's not a powerful striker. There's nothing special about him except he works his ass off. That cardio is earned, and that cardio is what weaponized his other skills. Yeah, he submitted Rodolfo Vieira. If that was a grappling match, straight up grappling match, you think he submits Rodolfo Vieira? No, of course not. But because he had such good cardio and wouldn't be broken by the early success Rodolfo had in that fight, he was able to hang and ultimately get the win, and that's what kicked off the 6-fight win streak. So I think that insane amount of work he's putting in behind the scenes to build that cardio is going to be what wins him this fight here. I don't know if I've ever picked Fluffy to win a fight, ever. But I am now. And then we have the main event of the evening. We have Olympic gold medalist Henry Cejudo taking on Yadong Song. Henry Cejudo, as I mentioned, Olympic gold medalist. He is a former 2-division champion. He retired in the middle of one of his title reigns in 2020. And while he is an Olympic wrestler, his takedown accuracy is pretty low at 46%. But he does have better striking than you would expect from an Olympic wrestler. He's got a positive striking differential. He'll mix it up on the feet before working in shots. He's coming off that one-sided loss to Merab Dvalishvili, which looks pretty good now. Not only did Merab go on to become the bantamweight champion of the world, he then just defended his belt against what everybody was assuming was the unanimous best fighter in the world. He's taking on Song Yadong or Yadong Song. He's a technical striker. He moves pretty well. He's fast. He hits hard. He's athletic. But he can be hittable at almost 4 significant strikes absorbed per minute. He throws everything with power, and that could leave him open to takedowns. but he's very good at creating space and getting back to his feet. He does like to dictate the pace, but he did show us that even when he's fighting a very good grappler, like when he fought Ricky Simon, he will let his hands go, and he will trust his defense. He's coming off that loss to Piotr Jan, where he was able to defend 3 takedowns, but he did miss 7 of his own. And I'm a big-time Henry Cejudo fan. I even bought his book after he won the Olympics, before he was in the UFC. I've wrestled my entire life. I've been coaching wrestling for an ungodly amount of time before I moved here to Texas. So I'm a huge Henry Cejudo guy. Was very well aware of him and his accomplishments before he ever stepped foot in his cage. But like many of my favorite fighters from the last century, they're getting old, and they're slowing down, and they're starting to lose. And before I pick against him here, we have to remind you that Henry Cejudo is an all-time great in this sport. His nickname is Triple C because he was an Olympic champion, the flyweight champion, and the bantamweight champion. And then for reasons we will never know, he decided to step away from the spotlight at the height of his abilities, and he just hasn't been able to find that same success. He is 38 years old in a division where age matters, and I think it is going to show here. I think Song wins this fight. I think he looks better as it goes longer. Song is just too good of a striker. He's young, he's fast, he's clean. I think Song Yadong gets his first win over a former UFC champion. I'll be rooting. So I'm not betting on this fight because I will be rooting for Henry Cejudo. I never bet on somebody who I don't think wins, right? I never look at a big underdog and say, hey, let me throw a couple bucks, see what happens. Every bet I ever place is always, I expect it to hit. So I can't go ahead and bet Henry Cejudo. And I'm not going to bet on Song when I'm rooting for Henry. So no bet here for this fight. I will be rooting hard for Henry Cejudo. I want Henry Cejudo to win this fight, find that success that he walked away from. The rumor at the time was it was a negotiation ploy. We wanted more money, so he retired, vacated 2 belts. He vacated 2 belts when he retired. And it created chaos in those divisions. But like anything else in this world, you just move on. The divisions just moved on without him. A couple years later, he was like, oh, let me come back. When he came back and fought Aljamain Sterling, I thought he won that fight. I genuinely thought he won that fight. Which sucks because he would have come back and become the champ again. But he lost that fight, gave up more takedowns than he should have. And now here we are, 2 losses later, hasn't won a fight since 2020. I'll be rooting for the guy. I don't think he's going to get it done. Guys, download the app. We saw what happened last week with the insane line movement. Download the app. The app's 100% free. Just search We Want Pick in the App Store. Download the app. Make sure notifications are on. Every time we place a bet, you will get a push notification. I just placed the safety parlay for UFC Seattle. It's up. It's on the board. And I just pushed a push notification to the, I think 3,000 people have downloaded the app so far. So download the app, put notifications on. If you get a notification and you don't care, all right, swipe it, put the phone down, whatever. What you don't want to do is miss out. Just search We Want Picks in the App Store. The app will give you full access to every single thing Premium has to offer, including the fight simulator. This is a tool that simulates fights 100,000 times and then uses those results to build DraftKings fantasy lineups for bets, whatever you want. You also have access to the data analyzer. A lot of you watch these videos for research purposes. A lot of you don't want to buy somebody else's bets. But if you value your time and you want easy access to all the insights so you can place your own bets, well, that's what the data analyzer is for. And that's the beauty of premium membership. It's not one thing. There's copy-paste bets. There's tools. There's fantasy. There's daily fantasy. There's anything you could want. So if you're in the camp of, I'm just going to do my own research, and you're part of my research process, gorgeous Ange, well, the data analyzer should be part of your research process as well. It has every single historical fight for every fighter on that fight card. You could also do your research for future events. Like if you want to get ahead of UFC 313 right now, you go to the data analyzer, you click UFC 313, you'll have every fighter on that card, and then you can drill into the data. You can add filters. You can stack filters. The lines adjust. You can do the full tape study research as well by clicking one of the dots on the plot points. Watch the fight, take your notes, do your thing. You also have full access to the line movement tracker. This will give you opening odds, current odds, win probability, and line movement for every fighter on every card. You'll have full access to the Prop Hunter, a curated set of data specifically designed to help you find prop bets. You'll have full access to everybody at We Want Picks. That's me, Jacob, Artem, BetSam, and the robot, the artificial intelligence. 5 different beings giving you picks, bets, and breakdowns. Every single thing we offer is in one package. No upsells, no nonsense, no tiers. WeWantPicks.com. Click Become a Member at the top. Genuinely, thank you for being here. Thank you for watching this video, even if you're hate watching. I appreciate it. Good luck this weekend. I'm looking forward to this fight card. It feels like it's going to be another phenomenal week.